The veil hits the floor before she can stop it. 1 second, it is pinned to her hair, white, soft, trailing down her back like something borrowed from a life she never agreed to, and then his fingers move, and it drops, and the only sound in the room is the whisper of fabric landing on cold marble. Razan Kade does not look at what he just did. He looks at her face in the mirror on the east wall. His hands settle on her bare shoulders. Warm, steady, deliberate, like he has stood behind her 1,000 times before and plans to stand there 1,000 more. His voice comes so low it barely moves the air between them. It'll hurt. A pause long enough to be a choice. But I won't stop. Zeta Voss does not move. Hi, viewers. Have you ever signed something you believed you fully understood, only to realize later you only understood the words, not the weight? Drop your answer in the comments right now. I want to read every single one. Not 1 inch. Not 1 breath. She stands inside her own reflection, white lace, bare shoulders, dark hair pinned at the nape of her neck, and she stares at the two of them in that glass and does the one thing he did not plan for. She thinks, the room around them is the kind of beautiful that costs real money to maintain. Cream walls, gold trim, a chandelier overhead throwing amber arcs across everything it touches. On the side table, a gold ring sits catching light it has no business catching, given that no one has offered it to anyone. A cracked line runs across the lower corner of the mirror, thin, diagonal, like a question nobody answered. She noticed it the day she arrived. She has not looked at it since. She looks at it now. 40 floors below, the city moves. Up here, nothing does. 3 weeks ago, in a glass-fronted office in the financial district, she sat across a desk and signed a document described as a financial protection clause. Her family's debt, 4 years' worth, compounded, the kind that comes in envelopes with red borders gone. Her presence inside his building, required. Her future, written in language careful enough to mean almost anything, and specific enough to mean nothing she could challenge. She read every line. She was wrong to think that was enough. A child's voice rises and falls in the hallway outside the closed door. Tansy, 6 years old, daughter of the building's property manager. She stopped at the open doorframe this morning, looked directly at Razan Kade with the kind of clear, unbothered focus that belongs only to small children and very old dogs, and said, "You have sad eyes for a tall person." He did not answer, but his jaw moved, and Zeta filed that movement into the back of her mind, behind everything else. That drawer is getting full. She is not afraid of him. That is the part nobody would believe. But fear is not what is sitting in her chest right now. What is sitting there is colder than fear. More permanent. The specific weight of a woman who just understood standing in this amber light, in borrowed white lace, with a powerful man's hands on her shoulders, that she did not lose this moment tonight. She lost it the morning she signed her name. And the most dangerous part is not that she is trapped. It is that she is only now beginning to understand exactly how much she already gave away. He turns away from the mirror first. That is how she knows she has reached him, because Razan Kade does not turn away from anything. He walks to the window, hands at his sides, shoulders carrying the weight of a man who has never once in his adult life asked anyone for anything, and built an entire empire to make sure he never has to. He expected something from her. He always does. Tears, anger, the practiced performance of shock that signals a woman still needs the man she's afraid of to feel responsible. Zeta gives him silence. She steps off the dressing stool. She picks up the gold ring from the side table, not roughly, not with drama, and sets it down on the far end of the table, a foot from where it was. Then she walks to the window on the opposite side of the room and looks at the city below, like a woman who decided, some time ago, to study her surroundings. The silence stretches, 8 seconds, 10, 12. She can hear him breathing. He runs a network that reaches into every legitimate business district in this city, and several that are not legitimate at all. He has sat across from federal prosecutors and said nothing for 40 minutes straight. He has watched men twice his size come apart under the specific, surgical pressure of his stillness. He has never been on the receiving end of it. He does not enjoy it. She can tell because his reflection in the far window, faint, layered over the city lights below, shows her the one thing his face does not. His left hand, at his side, opening and closing. Slow, almost invisible. A man working out something he has no language for. The door cracks open 3 inches. Tansy, sock feet, a juice box held in both hands. She looks at Razan by one window. She looks at Zeta by the other. She looks at the long, wide, quiet space between them like she is measuring it. Then she says, with complete seriousness, "You look lonely." She is talking to Razan. She pulls the door shut. The silence that follows is different. Warmer, more open, like something has been named out loud that both of them already knew, and neither had planned to address tonight. Razan turns from the window. He looks at Zeta for a long moment, not coldly, not warmly, carefully, the way a man looks at something he is trying to classify and keeps failing to. She holds his eyes, does not look away, does not perform anything. He is not the most dangerous person in this room anymore. She is starting to be. What will keep him awake for the next 4 nights is not that she refused to break. It is something quieter than that, and harder to name. She is learning the shape of him, reading him the way she reads a document, slow and thorough, without letting her face show what the words mean. And she has not decided yet what she is going to do with what she finds. The first sign is a number, not a threat, not a gun. A $43,000 wire transfer, rerouted from an Eastern account Razan's network has held for 6 years, broken into increments small enough to pass the automated monitors and large enough to mean someone has been watching the thresholds for a while. Zeta finds it on a Tuesday morning at the long table in the east-facing room. She is reading the financial pages when Devlin Cross, Razan's operations director, compact and careful, a man who speaks in complete sentences and never gestures when he talks, brings in the morning briefings, sets them on the table, and leaves without a word. She is not supposed to be reading those briefings. Nobody told her not to. The wire anomaly is buried in the 3rd page of a regional account summary. She reads it twice. Then she turns to page 7, where a property transfer record shows a name in a footnote, Caldwell Voss, that she has seen before. Last week, in a memo on the edge of Devlin's desk that he moved when he noticed her looking. The week before that, in a logistics filing left open on the kitchen counter. 3 appearances in 10 days. None explained. All treated like background. She sets the briefing back exactly where it was. By Thursday, it is not background. The Voss move comes through paper, which is the part that takes everyone too long to recognize. Not guns, wire manipulation, license delays, a quiet word dropped into 3 financial institutions about irregular activity in Cade Holdings' Eastern accounts, worth a closer look. 2 import licenses suspended by Friday morning. A construction contract in the Port District gone. A business partner in Atlanta who stops answering calls. Razan responds the way he responds to everything. Cold, fast, no visible effort. He is on the phone by 6 in the morning and done by noon. Licenses restored, contract resurrected. The Atlanta partner back in line, and more cooperative than he was before all of this started. The empire holds. Zeta watches every moment of it from the long table. She watches Devlin deliver updates in short, clipped sentences. She watches Razan listen without interrupting, ask exactly 2 questions, and make 3 calls that end things. She watches the machinery of his world operate, how it bends, how it absorbs, how it closes itself back up around a wound so fast you would never know there had been one. She also watches Devlin's face when Razan asks about the Eastern accounts. A pause, less than 1 second. The kind that lives below most people's awareness. The kind that only registers if you were already watching for it. She was already watching for it. She has been watching for it for 9 days. Small pauses, small redirects. The specific, practiced stillness of a man being careful in a room where he should be completely comfortable. By Thursday evening, she knows something that Razan's entire operation has not confirmed. She knows the second move is not coming from outside. It is coming from inside. From someone who has sat in those briefings, answered those calls, walked those floors long enough to know exactly where the open spaces are. She knows. She does not say a word. She sets her teacup down. She picks up the next page of the financial summary and keeps reading, because Zeta Voss does not spend information the moment she gets it. She holds it. She watches what a man does when he believes he is the only one in the room who sees clearly. And what she sees right now is a man walking toward a betrayal from someone he trusts completely. She lets him walk. They pick her up on a Wednesday, 2 blocks from the dry cleaner on Mercer Street. Not physically. Not yet. A silver sedan, 2 men, no readable plates from the angle she catches in a shop window, pulls out behind her when she turns off the main avenue and holds a distance that is close enough to be deliberate and far enough to suggest patience. These are not impatient men. That is the first thing she registers. She finishes her errands. She buys the coffee from the place that uses too much cinnamon. She collects the dry cleaning. She walks back through the marble lobby of the Cade building, takes the elevator to the 44th floor, and finds Devlin in the corridor. She tells him, quietly, about the sedan. 2 men, 6 blocks. She gives him the street names and the approximate time, and nothing else. Not Razan. Devlin. She watches Devlin's face when she tells him. Steady. Practice steady. Not natural steady. His eyes go to the window behind her 1/2 second too long. She notes it. Razan finds out within the hour. By evening, the silver sedan is gone from the street. What happened to it and the men inside it is communicated to her through the clean, deliberate absence of any detail at all. 2 of Razan's people are now within line of sight every time she leaves the building. She knows because she spots them. She also knows they are good enough that she was not supposed to. She is not grateful. She is not angry. She is paying attention. That night at 10:30, she comes into the kitchen for water and finds him at the stove. No staff. No audience. A skillet on low heat, garlic gone golden at the edges. Something with thyme moving warm through the air. He does not turn when she comes in. She does not announce herself. She fills a glass at the sink and stands there, and neither of them speaks. She sits down at the counter because the stool is there, and sitting is less of a statement than leaving. He cooks the way a person cooks when they learned it alone. Deliberate, efficient, no wasted motion. The kind of cooking that is feeding something other than hunger. He plates enough food for 4 people. There are 2 of them in the building tonight. He sets the second plate across from her without asking if she is hungry, without asking if she wants to stay. He sits. She picks up the fork. They eat. The coffee cup from this morning is still on the counter between them. Neither of them mentions it. Neither of them mentions the sedan, or the document she signed, or the name Caldwell Voss, buried in a footnote on page 7 of a briefing she was not supposed to read. The food is good. That is the specific, disarming truth. It is genuinely, carefully good right on the salt, exact on the time. Someone paid real attention to this. That matters more than she expected it to. She looks at his hands resting at the edge of his plate. She has been watching his hands for 11 days. In meetings they are still, controlled, giving away nothing. During the Atlanta call they flexed once, barely visible, when the second license suspension came through. Right now they are just hands on a plate, loose, unhurried. People who cook too much food when something is wrong have been doing it long enough that it stopped being a response. It became a pattern, a habit so old it feels like personality. It means the fear that started it has been there for a very long time. His routines are not random. She understood that the moment she watched him at this stove, every habit he carries, every practiced stillness, every wall he keeps between himself and every room he walks into, none of it is personality. All of it is survival. Old survival. The kind that started in a version of his life she has not been given access to yet. She picks up her fork again. She eats. And under the warmth and the garlic and the amber light, she sits with a question she did not have this morning and cannot put back down. Whatever broke this man open, whatever happened before all of this, before the empire and the walls and the $43,000 rerouted in the dark, It happened long before she arrived, and it is still happening. She just does not know yet what it was. She builds the case in 9 days, not because she goes looking for it, because it keeps coming to shore the way a current carries things piece by piece, quiet, patient. You do not chase what the water brings. You stand on the bank and let the picture find you. It starts with a timestamp, a file transferred through the operations server at 11:14 on a Monday night, accessed from a terminal 2 floors below the executive suite. The terminal has no logged reason to touch Eastern account data. The access lasted 4 minutes and 32 seconds. Zeta finds it on a cross-check she runs. Not because anyone asked her to, but because the Eastern account anomaly from the Voss incursion has been sitting at the back of her mind like a splinter just past reach, and the cleanest way to find the source of a wound is always to trace it backward. The timestamp is the first piece. The second is a briefing summary. Devlin delivers them every morning at 7:15. Zeta reads them at the long table while he is still in the room, which means she sometimes catches the difference between what the page says and what his face says while she reads it. 3 days after the Voss attack closes out, there is a summary about the Atlanta partners' recovery, the new terms, the revised arrangement, the concessions made to bring him back. The summary is missing one specific figure, a penalty payment referenced in a separate logistics document she read 2 days earlier that should be in this summary and is not. Devlin wrote the summary. She sets the page down without reacting. She refills her tea. She asks Devlin one question about an unrelated shipping timeline and watches his eyes drift 1/2 second past her to the window behind her when he answers. The third piece comes on a Friday afternoon when she builds a test. In a routine conversation with one of Razan's mid-level finance staff, she mentions a number, a figure tied to a material shipment in the port district. The figure is slightly wrong in a direction that is interesting if you are looking for a gap to feed to someone who needs one. She waits. 4 days later, a Voss-connected intermediary operating through a Delaware shell company moves on exactly that figure. Confirmed. She sits with it for 48 hours, not because she is uncertain what to do, because she is watching herself the way she watches a document, carefully, without letting her face change, and what she finds underneath the confirmation is not what she expected. She is not just holding information, she is feeling its weight, turning it in her hands the way you turn a key before you decide which door deserves it. And there is a word for the feeling that comes with that. It is not survival. It is not safety. It is something older and quieter and considerably more dangerous. It is leverage, the specific, clean satisfaction of knowing something that shifts every room she walks into, not because anyone can see it, but because she can. She is no longer the woman who doesn't know. Inside this empire, behind this door, she is the person who knows first. She brings it to a briefing obliquely. A question about internal verification protocols, broad, academic, framed as simple curiosity. She watches the room when she asks it, watches Razan listen, watches Devlin answer. Devlin's answer is careful, professional, and entirely useless. After the meeting, there is a stillness in Razan she has not seen before. Not his usual controlled posture, the particular stillness of a man who heard something land at an angle he was not expecting and is now sitting very quietly with what that means. He knows something has shifted. He does not know yet that she is the reason. She walks out. She goes back to the long table. She picks up the financial pages. She puts them down without reading a single word, because the 48 hours she spent watching herself with this information has shown her something she was not looking for. The satisfaction of leverage is real. She is not going to pretend otherwise, but one layer underneath it, quiet and waiting, is a recognition she cannot unfeel. She has started measuring outcomes not just for survival, but for something more, for influence, for the specific, addictive sensation of being the person in the room who sees further than anyone else. And in this building, in this empire that Razan Kadeh built, piece by piece, from every trust that ever turned against him, the people who started measuring for more are the ones whose names now live in footnotes. She reads alone at a long table in the work. Mornings. She knows who the traitor is. She folds the financial pages. She looks out at the city. She sits with that knowledge and the feeling underneath it, and the thing underneath that. And she makes a choice that she will not fully understand the cost of for another 3 weeks. She lets it play out. Devlin Cross is gone by 10 o'clock on a Monday morning. Not dramatically, not in handcuffs, not in a scene. One moment he is walking through the 44th floor corridor with a briefing folder under his arm, and the next his office is empty, and his access cards have stopped working. And the 2 men who appeared outside that office door at 9:58 are gone too, along with him, into whatever quiet and permanent arrangement Razan makes for people who sell him piece by piece to his enemies. No announcement, no explanation to the staff, just absence, and the specific silence that fills the space a person leaves when they are removed rather than departed. By noon, the Eastern accounts are restructured. By 3 in the afternoon, the Voss pipeline that Devlin fed for 11 months is closed, without Caldwell Voss knowing it has been closed. The network tightens. The damage is absorbed. The empire does what it always does. It seals itself back up, smooth and fast, like the surface of deep water after something heavy drops through. Raisin wins. He always wins. And then, for the first time since Zeta arrived in this building, he gives her something she did not ask for and did not expect. He gives her a seat. Not in ceremony, not with a speech. He simply includes her in briefings she was previously adjacent to, in calls where he now pauses at certain points and waits in a way that is not quite an invitation, but is not a closed door either. His remaining senior staff adjust without being told to. She watches them recalibrate in real time, the way experienced people recalibrate when a room's balance shifts without acknowledgement, without complaint, with the particular efficiency of people who have learned that survival inside this world means reading the current and moving with it. She earns the seat fast. Within 2 weeks, she has flagged a mid-tier financial exposure that saves a Port District arrangement worth 3 times Devlin's annual salary. She has made 2 personnel assessments so accurate they arrive before the problems they describe have fully formed. She has, in one meeting with a logistics partner from Houston, redirected a renegotiation so smoothly that the partner left believing the better terms were his own idea. Razan's people stop looking through her. They start watching where she goes when she enters a room. She feels it, the weight of it, the specific, clean gravity of being someone that rooms account for. It is nothing like what she imagined influence would feel like. It is quieter, more physical. It sits in her chest the way a full breath sits, like something she did not know she had been missing until she finally had it. She believes, standing at the window of the east-facing room on a Thursday afternoon, with the city spread out below her and the amber light doing what it does at 4 o'clock, that she has changed the terms of the arrangement she signed, that what began as a financial protection clause has become something she is steering, that she has taken the seat they gave her and built it into something they cannot take back. She believes she has won. Tansy appears in the doorway behind her. The child looks at Zeta at the window for a long moment, head tilted the way she tilts it when she is working something out. She says, "You look different." Zeta says, "Different how?" Tansy thinks about it with the serious, unhurried focus she brings to every question she considers worth answering. "Like you forgot something," she says. Then she wanders back into the hallway in her sock feet. Zeta stands at the window. The city moves below. The amber light holds. She turns the child's words over once, twice, and then sets them aside, because she has a decision to make and a window to make it in, and the data in front of her is clean, and the logic is sound, and she has been right about everything for 2 weeks straight. She approves the rerouted shipment alone at 4:47 on a Thursday afternoon, while Razan is unreachable and the window is closing. She makes the call. She is confident. She has never been more wrong about anything in her life. The retaliation does not come from Caldwell Voss. That is the first thing she has to absorb, standing in the east-facing room at 7:15 on a Friday morning with a logistics report in her hands and the specific, Cold understanding of a person who just watched the floor drop out from somewhere they were not watching. It comes from an ally, Marcus Del Rey. 14-year relationship with Razan's network. A standing arrangement built not on paper but on a handshake in a restaurant in Lisbon 4 years ago, on terms that live nowhere in writing and exist entirely in the specific, mutual understanding of two men who have kept their word to each other across a decade of circumstances that would have broken most agreements 3 times over. Zeta did not know about the handshake. She could not have known. It is not in any document she had access to. It is not in any briefing. It exists in the space between what is recorded and what is simply known, the kind of institutional memory that lives in a person, not a file, and that dies when that person is removed from the room. Devlin knew about it. Devlin is gone. The shipment she rerouted crossed a line that Marcus Del Rey drew in Lisbon 4 years ago, in a private room with a glass of something expensive, and a handshake that meant, this route stays clean. Always. No exceptions. No approvals from people he does not know. By Friday morning, the message has arrived through 2 intermediaries, formal, brief, and final. The arrangement has been reconsidered. The financial freeze follows within the hour. A supply disruption by midday. 2 downstream partners who, upon hearing that Marcus Del Rey has stepped back immediately themselves because in this world, that name carries the specific weight of a signal, and the signal is clear. Razan reads the report standing at his desk at 2 in the afternoon. He does not slam anything. He does not raise his voice. He sets the report down flat on the desk, very carefully, and he does not speak for a long time. The room around him is perfectly still. His hands are at his sides. His face is the face he keeps for rooms where everything is on fire, and he has decided to be the last thing that burns. When he speaks, it is 4 words. You made the call. Not a question. Not an accusation. The simple, flat naming of a fact. Laid on the space between them like something placed on glass. She does not apologize. She does not reach for an explanation. Both would be performances, and she is past performing. She says, yes. He nods once. He leaves the room. He does not come back that evening. She sits at the long table in the silence he left behind, and she does not move for a long time. The financial pages are in front of her. She does not read them. The coffee cup from this morning is on the counter. She does not reach for it. She sits with the specific, merciless weight of having been completely right about the logic of a decision and completely wrong about the world the decision lived inside. She knew the route. She knew the numbers. She knew the timing. She did not know about Lisbon. She did not know what she did not know, and that is the sentence that keeps arriving in the front of her mind, quiet and relentless, the way water keeps arriving at a shore, regardless of what stands in front of it. The worst part is not the damage. The damage can be repaired. She already knows how. She has been turning the problem over since 8 this morning, and the solution is visible and specific, and she is already clear on what it will cost. The worst part is the way he said those 4 words, not with rage. Rage would have been easier. Rage would have given her something to push against, something to absorb and respond to. What he gave her instead was stillness, the particular controlled stillness of a man who trusted something new and is now alone in a room deciding what that decision means about his judgment. She miscalculated one thing. She thought she had learned the system. She had learned the surface of the system. Under the surface, invisible and load-bearing, were 11 years of relationships, and private rooms, and handshakes, and the specific, unwritten architecture of trust between people who cannot afford to write things down. That architecture does not appear in briefings. It lives in people. And she sat at that long table every morning for 5 weeks, reading everything she could reach, and never once stopped to ask what she could not reach, what was not written, what only moved through rooms in voices and memory, and the specific weight of a man's word given in private. The city is dark outside the window now. The amber light is gone. She is alone at the long table in the blue-gray of a city night, and the solution is clear in her mind, and the cost of it is clear too, and she sits with both of them together, and does not look away. She knows what she has to do to fix this. The problem is that Razan is not going to want her to do it. She tells him at 7 in the evening. He is standing at his desk when she comes in. He does not sit. She does not ask him to. She closes the door behind her, stands 2 feet inside the room, and lays it out the structure of the problem, the structure of the solution, the specific mechanism by which one leads to the other. Clean. No softening. No reaching for his sympathy first. The fix requires her to surface the original Del Rey arrangement, bring it into light, file a voluntary disclosure that makes the relationship official, traceable, visible to the kind of institutional eyes that Razan has spent 4 years keeping at a comfortable distance. It solves the immediate damage, restores the arrangement, signals good faith to Del Rey, brings the downstream partners back. It also creates a paper trail around a relationship that has operated precisely because it left no paper. It trades one problem for a longer, slower exposure. It is the only path that fully repairs it. She has run every other angle. This is the one that holds. He listens to all of it without interrupting. When she finishes, he is quiet for a moment. Then he says, "No," she says. It closes the Del Rey situation completely. He says, "There are other ways." She says, "Slower. More damage in the gap. You know the numbers better than I do." He moves to the window. The city at night below. 10,000 lit windows that belong to 10,000 lives that know nothing about this room or this conversation or the specific cost of a decision made in a private room in Lisbon 4 years ago. He stands there for a long time. She watches his hands. They are in his pockets. The left one is not completely still. She has seen this before at the stove, making too much food for a table set for 2. The left hand moving when the thing he cannot say is pressing from the inside out. She knows now, after 5 weeks in this building, that this is what fear looks like on Razan Kade. Not in his face, not in his voice. In one hand, in his pocket, where nobody is supposed to look. He is not refusing because he wants control. She is past believing that. He is refusing because she is about to walk into a system that has no reason to protect her, carrying information that makes her a target, on behalf of damage she created, and there is nothing he can build or call or pay that makes that safe. She understands this completely. She is going to do it anyway. She says, "It is the right move." He turns from the window. His eyes find her face and stay there. He is looking at her the way he looked at her in the mirror that first night, searching for something, not finding the thing he expected, recalibrating in real time. He says, "You understand what that disclosure opens?" She says, "Yes." He says, "You understand that once it is filed, I cannot walk it back." She says, "I know." The room holds them both in silence for a moment. The same amber light, the same cream walls, the same city outside the window. The cracked mirror on the east wall catches a thin line of evening light along its fracture. She notices it. She has not looked at it directly in weeks. He says, very quietly, "This was my mess to clean." She says, "You weren't in the room when I made the call." He looks at her for a long time after that, long enough that the silence stops being uncomfortable and becomes something else, the specific, heavy quiet of 2 people who are both telling the truth and both wishing the truth were different. He does not say yes. He does not say no again either. He turns back to the window. She takes that as her answer. She already knew what she was going to do before she walked into this room. She came because he deserved to know before she did it. Because that much, at least, she could give him. She leaves. She closes the door behind her. She goes to the long table and sits down and opens her laptop and begins drafting the filing she will submit tomorrow morning at 9. The cracked mirror is the last thing she sees before she turns off the light. She submits the disclosure at 9:17 on a Thursday morning and does not tell anyone it is happening until it is already done. Not because she is hiding it. Because the moment it is filed, it belongs to the system, and no one's objection changes anything, and she has spent enough time in this world to know that the cleanest way through a hard thing is straight through it, not sideways. The financial freeze begins lifting by noon. The mechanism is exactly what she mapped. The disclosure reaches Marcus Del Rey's legal team before it reaches any institutional body. She structured it that way, filed through a channel that gives him 48 hours of first knowledge, which is the specific, unwritten language of respect that this world runs on, and that she finally understands. It says, "You are not being exposed, you are being honored. Here is proof that the arrangement was real, and the people in it kept their word." Marcus Del Rey responds by 2 in the afternoon. One sentence, through the same intermediary who delivered the freeze. The arrangement stands. By 4 o'clock, the downstream partners are back. The supply disruption ends. The numbers close. The damage she caused in 4 minutes and 47 seconds on a Thursday afternoon takes 6 hours to fully repair and leaves a paper trail that Razan will manage carefully for the next 2 years. But it is manageable. It is finite. It is over. Razan comes downstairs at 3. She is at the long table when he walks in. He looks at her. He looks at the laptop. He looks at the time on the wall and does the math that tells him the filing went in 4 hours before he came down here. 4 hours during which he was in his office on the floor above, and she was at this table doing the thing he told her not to do. He does not look angry. He looks at her the way you look at something you have been trying to categorize for 6 weeks and have finally, reluctantly, accepted you cannot. He pulls out the chair across from her and sits down. Neither of them speaks for a moment. Then he reaches into his jacket pocket and sets something on the table between them. The gold ring. She looks at it. She looks at him. "I took it off the front desk 3 weeks ago," he says. "The morning after the sedan." He pauses. "I did not know why. I told myself it was a loose end." She looks at the ring on the table, at the amber light catching its edge, at his hands, flat on either side of it, completely still for the first time in 6 weeks. She says, "Was it a loose end?" He says, "No." Outside the window, the city moves. Inside the room, the light holds. The cracked mirror on the east wall is gone. She notices this now, registering the clean, unbroken glass where the fracture used to be. She does not know when it was replaced. She does not know if he replaced it, or if it simply happened the way things happen in buildings, run by people who pay attention to everything. What she knows is that it is gone. The fracture is gone. She looks at the ring on the table. She does not pick it up. Neither does he. It sits between them in the amber light, like a question that neither of them has to answer tonight, and both of them already know the answer to, and neither is in a hurry to say out loud, because saying it out loud makes it real, and real things can be lost, and both of them have lost enough. Tansy appears in the doorway. Sock feet. No juice box tonight. She looks at the two of them at the table, at the ring between them, at the space between their hands, which is smaller than it was yesterday, and both of them know it. She says, "Is this a good thing or a bad thing?" Razan looks at her for a moment. Then he says, "Ask me tomorrow." Tansy nods seriously. She looks at Zeta. Zeta says, "Ask him tomorrow." Tansy nods again and disappears back into the hallway. The city goes on outside. The amber light goes on inside. And at the long table in the east-facing room, for the first time in 6 weeks, neither of them is performing anything for the other, and the silence between them is not a weapon and not a wall. It is just two people sitting in the same light after a very long time of learning the shape of each other from a distance. The ring is still on the table. For now, that is enough. 8 months later, the room looks the same. Same chandelier, same cream walls. The amber light arrives at the same angle it always has, at the same hour, doing what it has always done without being asked. But the mirror on the east wall is new, clean glass, no fracture, no diagonal line running corner to corner like a question nobody answered. It was replaced sometime in the 2 weeks after the disclosure filing. Zeta noticed when it happened. She did not say anything about it. Neither did he. Some things do not need language. Razan's empire is smaller. This is simply true, and she does not dress it up. The disclosure cost exactly what she said it would: 2 partnerships, 1 regional operation, and the specific kind of untouchability that comes from existing entirely outside visible systems. He is, by every measure his world uses, less powerful than he was 8 months ago. He is also, by every measure she knows how to use, more present. He asks questions now instead of making assessments. He eats regular meals, correct-sized meals, which she noticed before she understood what it meant. He laughs at things Tansy says real laughs, not the controlled, managed version of amusement that powerful people perform to seem human. Last week, he sat on the hallway floor with the child for 20 minutes, while she explained, in thorough detail, why her stuffed elephant was a better judge of character than most adults. He listened like she was making an important point. She was. Zeta has her own work now, her own decisions, her own accounts and her own clients, and a seat at tables that exist well outside Razan's network, and that she earned through the specific, unremarkable, cumulative effort of being right more often than she is wrong, and learning fast from the times she is not. She is not rescued. She was never rescued. She is a woman who was underestimated and had the patience to let that be someone else's problem. She stays in the building, not because the clause requires it. The clause expired 90 days after she filed the disclosure, a technicality that both of them were aware of and neither raised. She stays because she chooses to, because choosing to stay is different from being kept, and the difference is everything, and he has learned to understand it. Tansy is 7 now, still sock-footed, still operating with the complete, undistracted clarity of someone who has no investment in saying what people want to hear instead of what is true. Last Tuesday, she stood in the kitchen doorway and looked at Razan making dinner, the right amount of dinner now, enough for 2, a correction so quiet it arrived without announcement, and said, "You don't look lonely anymore." He said, "No, I don't think I am." She said, "Is it because of her?" He said, "Partly." She said, "What's the other part?" He was quiet for a moment. He turned down the heat on the stove. He said, "Learning how to need less armor." Tansy considered this seriously. She nodded. She walked back down the hallway in her sock feet, apparently satisfied. Zeta was standing at the counter behind him when he said it. He knew she was there. She knew he knew. Neither of them addressed it directly, because it did not need to be addressed directly. It was already said. It was already true. The gold ring is on the table most mornings now. Not as a statement, not as a question. Just there, in the amber light, the way familiar things end up in familiar places, when they finally belong somewhere. This is what real looks like. Not the version she imagined when she signed her name 3 weeks into a life that was supposed to be temporary. Not the version she chased when she sat at that long table reading briefings she was not supposed to read and felt the first, dangerous thrill of knowing something no one else in the room knew yet. Real is quieter than that. Real has bad mornings and logistical problems, and the specific, unglamorous work of 2 people who are both used to walls deciding, slowly and without ceremony, to build something without them. Real is Tansy in the hallway. A repaired mirror. Enough food for 2 at a table that used to be set for 1. Real is Zeta standing at the window she stood at 8 months ago. The first night. The silence. His hands on her shoulders. The veil on the floor, and understanding that the woman she is right now has almost nothing in common with the woman who was frozen in that glass. Not because he changed her, because she kept going until she changed herself. The final lesson of a false victory is not about losing. It is about what you do in the moment you understand that the control you thought you had was never the point. The point was always what you were willing to do when it was gone. Control is not power. Understanding is. If this story moved something in you, if you found yourself in Zeta, or in Razan, or somewhere in the silence between them, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below and tell me which moment hit you hardest. Your words in that comment section might be exactly what someone else needed to read today. And if you are not subscribed yet, do it now and turn on your notifications, because there are more stories on this channel. Stories about strength in quiet places and power in unexpected people, and you do not want to be the last one in the room to hear them. The most dangerous thing is not losing. It is standing in a room full of everything you thought you wanted and realizing, too late, that you were holding the wrong thing all along. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourself. The next story is already waiting.